Good morning, Texoma. I'm Ashley Fitzwater. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're taking an inside look into the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce and Industry and really the future of the chamber and what it really means for Wichita Falls. So joining me now is Henry Florsham. He is the president and CEO of the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So Mr. Florsham, thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
November, I understand, was kind of when you officially took over this position. So just last year, it hasn't been very long. Tell us a little bit about where you came from and the position that you held, prior to coming to Wichita Falls.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Louisiana. Spent almost all of my life in Monroe and then in Lafayette. I graduated from college in Monroe and moved down to Lafayette, which is where I got involved in economic development and chamber work. And so I did that down there for about 14 years. Oh. And just loved it. Loved the opportunities it gives you to really help improve your community. Mm-hmm. And so after doing that for a while, I had the opportunity to move to South Arkansas in a little town called El Dorado, which is real close to my hometown of Monroe. And so did that for 3 years, ran that chamber, really got it and the community headed in the right direction, and then we found out about this opportunity. Well, my wife is from Texas, born in Tyler, and moved to Dallas when she was young and still has friends and family in Dallas. And so it was kind of like moving home. Yeah. The opportunity to come here and be so close to so much of our family was great. And so we moved here. My first day on the job was November 1st of last year. And Kimberly and the kids got here right before Thanksgiving. We've been spending all our time just getting acquainted and getting the kids settled and in school. And they're finally all in school or daycare. And so Kimberly's got some time to poke around town now, and it's just been awesome. It's been a good 2.5 months.
That's great.
Yeah.
And speaking of kiddos, I know a lot of people out there may wonder how many you have, and so can you tell us just a little bit about them?
Sure. We've got 6. We have 3 daughters, and then we're in the process of adopting 3 more kids. We had decided a long time ago that we'd like to have a son, but we weren't going to have any more kids, and so we started fostering. And after a couple years of fostering, we probably had 20 kids through the house of all different ages and genders and races, including a couple of newborns that came straight from the hospital. And it just got hard. Our kids told us that they wanted permanent brothers. Right. They didn't want any brothers and sisters that just stayed for a little while. They wanted forever brothers and sisters. And so we stopped fostering. And a few months later, we got a call from Arkansas DHS that said, hey, we've got a boy, a 7-year-old boy that needs adopting. By the way, he's got 2 sisters that are coming with him, and so we were thinking about adding 1, and instead we're in the process of adding 3 kids to the family. And so they've been with us since last May, and they just fit right in, and we're just one bigger family now.
I love it. You've really brought a lot of people already then
to
we
increased
community.
The population of Wichita Falls by 8 people.
I love it. That's great. And all those daughters, oh my goodness. Well, little girls, you always say, daddy's girls, so there you go. You got 5 of them now to
I'm used to dealing with Disney princesses and dress-up clothes and all that, and so now it's funny, we're having to train ourselves all over again. It's like, okay, we can go play football with a boy. And the funny thing is, now that we're doing those sorts of things, some of the girls are wanting to get involved in that too. And
that's fun.
Yeah, I'm a big Saints fan, and my 6-year-old daughter, Emily, loves nothing more than to sit on the couch with me and watch Saints football. Yeah.
I love it. I love those stories. And, it's really neat to see how there's so many different areas then of the community it sounds like you're going to be involved in, especially having children and young children. What really attracted you to Wichita Falls specifically?
I already mentioned the family connection between my wife and Texas. And she'd always talked about moving back, and so I knew it was a good place to be. But then looking at Wichita Falls from a professional standpoint as an economic developer, look at the advantages that we have. First, we've got permanent economic development funding in the form of the 4A and the 4B tax. And that's a huge thing as an economic developer. You've got to know that there's going to be money out there for projects, whether that's to actually use to help recruit a company to move here or to build infrastructure like industrial parks or drainage or roads or anything like that. All the quality of life aspects that this community has funded. Our park system is amazing, right? The road infrastructure we have is incredible. For a city this size with 100,000 people, you can get anywhere in 10 or 15 minutes, and that's a big deal when people from the outside come in and see that. We got some good schools. The university is good. The community college has some great workforce development programs. And then when I came to interview, the people I met were just awesome.
Yeah.
And they were ready for some positive change, but you could tell that they were all on the same page. I met folks from the city the chamber board, the education community, all across the place, and just we felt a really good vibe. And so my second visit here, Kimberly came with me. And so as much as they were interviewing me, she and I were interviewing them as well, and Kimberly felt that connection instantly as well. And so it's just been, it was a great feeling when we were interviewing, and then since we've been here, we've experienced the same thing, that people just want us to be part of their family, and that everybody's vested in making this community be a better place. And so I'm real fortunate that I play a role that helps us do that. And so we can get involved in some really cool projects and work with the city to help make them happen. And so it's just been a lot of fun so far.
Makes things easier, huh?
It
Whenever
does.
you're trying to do things.
It does. And if you think about it, you watch the city council and how they interact, and you go to some of the other public meetings that we have, and you don't see much infighting or personality battles and that sort of thing. And there's a strategic plan, and everybody's pushing forward for these things, and that's a big deal. It's not like that every place.
And it's interesting to hear you say that because, you know, I've grown up in this area. This has always been home to me. But, you know, every week, it doesn't matter what the story is or who the guests are. You know, maybe they're connected to Shepherd, they're coming from another country or another state. And it's interesting to hear how people come in and they just speak so highly of the folks who live here.
Yeah.
You know, the welcoming and how they are to people that come in. So it really says a lot about our community, I think. And you've been to several different communities, and you're saying it's not always like that.
And you know, it's always about perspective, and you mentioned that about being from here. That dynamic happens everywhere. The people that are from a place, especially those that have never moved away, they take certain things for granted, and you just stop seeing things as they are, and your opinions get a little bit jaded sometimes.
Sure.
And so an outside perspective in my kind of position really helps, because I can look at something and say, well, wait a second, that's a real asset.
Sure.
And let's figure out how to do that and hook that up with this, and all of a sudden we got something great going on. Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to hear much more about those plans and how we're going to continue, of course, to improve this community, because you don't want to just keep it how it is. You want to keep growing, and that's
right.
the whole point. So stick around, Texas Home, and we need a quick break. We'll be right back with much more. Welcome back to Inside Texoma. Once again, we're taking an inside look into the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and specifically sitting down with the new president and CEO. We appreciate you kind of giving us an inside look into your life and how you've came to our community. But now I'd like to take a look at the Chamber. And a lot of people, I'm sure, have heard of the Chamber. There's lots of fun events that go on around town, lots of networking. But I think there's a lot of people out there who may not really fully understand what the Chamber does.
Sure.
So if you can explain that to us, you know, just in case maybe there's new people in the area watching.
Sure, and this is another one of those areas that perspective has a lot to do with it, because if you've been in other communities, every chamber is different. Every chamber is asked to provide different services to their community. And so it depends what your background is, right? What history you've had with a Chamber of Commerce, for example. And so here, we have multiple roles. We provide services to our members. Those are networking opportunities, educational workshops and seminars, sharing information about what's going on in town, and helping connect local business people to others that they can do business with. We spend quite a bit of time offering connections to our business community with our elected officials and educational and other governmental individuals as well. You know, example, a couple of weeks ago we had a legislative luncheon presenting Senator John Cornyn. And so that's a great way we can make those folks accessible to our membership and the business community as a whole, and getting people tied into what's going on out there. Now, in Wichita Falls, the Chamber also serves as the economic development organization. We have a contract with the city to provide economic development services. And so as part of that agreement, we recruit businesses to move here, we help existing ones with issues, and do all sorts of things, workforce development issues, et cetera, to help improve the economy. And so our job in a nutshell is to help improve the economy and to help solve businesses' problems.
And you've already had to, of course, take on some of that. The company in Electra. So What was your first reaction whenever you heard of the closure of Cameron?
Sure. Cameron International recently announced they're shutting down the facility in Electra, and they had 100+ employees out there. And we know that economies don't stop at a line on a map. They just don't. And you live somewhere, you might work somewhere else. You spend money here, that company you spend money with spends money in another city.
Sure.
Right? And so economies are regional. There's no such thing as a city economy. There's no such thing as a state economy. There are budgets, and there are certainly figures you can research that are related to states, but economies are regional. You know, Oklahoma, part of Oklahoma is part of our economy.
Right.
Because they're so close. In fact, what happens in Lawton affects our economy much more than what happens in San Antonio, for example, because they're so much farther away. And so when we found out about the closing in Electra, we knew that there was something we needed to take action on because there could be a negative impact to our community. And so what we did immediately was we reached out to the city leaders and the economic development staff in Electra and said, look, we'll help pull a meeting together of all the interested parties and figure out what can be done next. And so we had a meeting in Electra with the mayor and the economic developer of Electra, the county judge, folks from Workforce Solutions, and a few others to talk about what the issues are and how we can help. And the good thing in that situation was, although there are going to be quite a few employees let go, we started getting calls immediately. I mean, that night, I got a call on my cell and a Facebook message from somebody else that said, I need to hire some welders and some machine operators.
Wow.
How do I access those workers?
Yeah.
And so we know that a lot of those folks, most of them will be able to find jobs pretty quickly if they want to.
That's great.
And that's the sign of a good economy. You know, we're never as strong as we want to be.
Yeah.
But there are companies hiring out there, and so that helps soften this blow a little bit.
Does this go back to networking? You know, you hear a lot about that nowadays, and just, you know, connections and getting out there and getting your name, your business, yourself, marketing yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Networking, a lot of times people think that means, you know, cheesy cocktail events and that sort of thing, but what it's really about is relationships. Everything we do has to do with relationships. We have to have good relationships with the mayors and city leaders if we're going to make things happen. We have to have good relationships with those in the business community. And the same thing goes for any business out there. The more you're out networking and engaging in the community, the more people will know about your business, right? Because frankly, all this networking that we do, it's really not for us to get to know more people. The benefit is when people know us and think of us when they have a problem or an opportunity. Because what we want is for businesses to call us when they say, hey, I heard of somebody, one of my customers is looking for a new location. And I thought about you and I want to hook you up with them. If we're not out in the community delivering that message that that's what we do, they're not going to think to call us when they hear of those opportunities. And so one of the things we're going to be doing a lot more this year is spending time with our existing business community to make sure that we're listening to what their concerns are, looking for expansion opportunities, and then trying to get them to help us in our recruitment efforts. So yeah, it all goes back to relationships.
Absolutely. Now, if there are businesses maybe watching, business owners, you know, maybe they have a large company, maybe it's a small company, and they're not hooked up with the chamber, how do they go about doing that, and are there requirements to it?
There aren't. You know, on the one hand, we're a membership organization, and so there are very specific services we provide to those members. But on the other hand, we're the economic developer for the city, and therefore for the county as well. And so if a business has issues, I don't care if you're a chamber member or not, you got issues, call us, because our job is to help business do more business here, right? And we'll talk after about chamber membership, but it's certainly not a requirement in terms of us helping somebody expand or helping with some sort of issue.
We are not done talking about the future of the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So stick around, we'll be right back with much more. Welcome back to Inside Texoma. Once again, we are talking about the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and specifically the things that are going on in 2014. I know that there have already been a number of changes, positive changes going on. Can you tell us a little bit about what those are and how it affects those who may already be hooked up with the chamber and those wanting to get involved?
Sure. Well, we're going to tighten up our economic development activities for one. We're going to have a very specific targeted focus on key industries this year. And we're also going to develop a structured business retention and expansion program. I mentioned earlier that we were going to start spending more time with our business community, right? And figuring out what the issues are and where their opportunities for growth are. And so to do that, we're going to create a structured program that's we're going to develop a target list of companies of the biggest employers, those who service those big employers, other key industries. We'll look at some of our local entrepreneurs, and we'll build a list, and we'll start reaching out to those companies saying, hey, we want to come visit and talk about what's going on in town and see if there are any answers we can help you find to solve some of your problems. We're making a lot of changes internally as well. We're changing how we communicate with our members. For example, we used to create this long newsletter that we would email out once a month, and it was, I don't know, 8 or 10 pages, and it always looked the same. And from asking around and studying the demographics and the stats behind the website, that we could tell that not a lot of people were reading that. And so we scrapped it. We've replaced it with a weekly email that covers a single issue. That way it's easier for us to deliver a message that's focused instead of sending you something that's got 50 different topics on it.
Sure.
Right? And so it helps us, it helps our allies for us to be able to share messages and point you in the direction of interesting programs out there. There are a lot of plans being developed right now, facilities plans for MSU. Vernon's looking at some new facilities. Shepherd is working with the city on a joint land use study, and downtown development's starting to take on more of an economic development role. And so there's so many neat things happening right now, and we're right in the middle of that, helping support their activities, push people in their direction. Same with young professionals. You know,
yes.
Over 60% of our population is under 40 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it was really good. That was another thing I was interested in when we were talking about moving here, was that a year and a half ago, the city had started a young professionals organization. And so we're going to be helping them grow and define their mission in terms of helping our community be better for young professionals, right? And so we've got to be a place where people want to live, and all these organizations working together can help make that happen.
You had hit a little bit on Shepherd Air Force Base, and you always think, a lot of people think of Wichita Falls, they connect that with Shepherd Air Force Base. What were your thoughts, and maybe what are your thoughts whenever it comes to the base and the future and growing?
Right. Well, any community would give their right arm to have a company, a single company in their community that generated $1 billion or more of economic impact. You know, 15,000 people employed in that sort of thing, and that's what we've got there. Now, it's a unique animal because it's military, it's government, it's not a company, and so the support comes in different ways. And one is we will get more and more involved in the lobbying side, advocating for additional missions and protecting the base, that valuable resource that we have, and helping the Shepherd Military Affairs Committee do their job, which is just that. But then there's some other things that we can do to help connect them with the local community. In fact, they're conducting a program right now trying to find partners to take over certain operations at the base. For example, the golf course they have out there costs them money to run. And so they're looking for a private partner to come in and take over management of it that could hopefully help save them some money and turn the golf course into a bigger asset. You get a company that's a professional company that can do their marketing. You know, that's not the business an Air Force base is in.
Right.
And so you could find a private partner who could do it better. The same goes for the Shepherd Club out there. It's a dining and event meeting facility. Find a private partner that can kind of take over management for them, help them with their books, and help better utilize the facility. And so we're going to be trying to help make some connections there and let the business community know there's some real opportunities here.
Yeah.
It's interesting. When I first announced that we were moving here, there were two reactions, two things that people told us, oh, I know that about Wichita Falls. And one was the bike race, Hotter Than Hell, and the other was Shepherd Air Force Base. Across the board, people knew more about Shepherd and identified Wichita Falls with that than anything else about the city. And so we knew that that was a focal point. It had to be something real important to us that we spent some time on. We don't need to think of Shepherd as that thing over there on that side of town that we never touch or interact with. The more we can get that base tied into the community, the stronger position we're going to have down the road.
We need to take another quick break, but stick with us. We'll be right back with much more. Welcome back to Inside Texoma. Once again, we're taking an inside look into the Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We are here with the new president and CEO, Henry Florsheim. We appreciate you taking time to share with us this morning. And you know, earlier you were talking to us about the percentage of young people in this community, and 60% of them are under 40.
Right.
I think that's interesting. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. So you said a big part of your focus has been on the young professionals then.
It has to be. They're the future business leaders of our community, right? They're the ones that are going to be taking care of everybody else as the population gets older. And so the whole point of this, of economic and community development, it's not just about recruiting jobs. You have to develop a community where people want to be. Used to be, years ago, you could build a factory somewhere and people would go to those jobs wherever it was. But those times have changed. Nowadays, you've got to have a community where people want to be. That's where people are going to put their companies. Because the number one issue we hear over and over again when we're trying to recruit a company, it's not taxes, it's not a site, it's not infrastructure. You have to have those pieces. But if you don't have the workforce in place, they're not coming. And to have the workforce in place, you've got to have the educational programs, high school, good college, good workforce development training. But you've also got to have a good quality of life. And that's why things like parks are so important, wayfinding system to help people find those attractions, right? We've got tons of museums, but where are they?
Right.
And so we've got to do a better job at directing people to those things. And the city's got a plan, they're working on it. And so all those things, how nice is it to live somewhere and what activities are there, they play a huge role in economic development. And so we will continue to support those activities. We'll continue to work more closely than ever with the Young Professionals Organization to help identify what those things are those folks are looking for. We have to ask them. We can't assume that we know.
Sure.
You know, I'm not in their demographic anymore, but I love interacting with that group because they know what their peers want to see in a community. And they talk to their friends who live elsewhere or who have moved away about the things that are happening here. And so if we can get our young professionals proud of what's going on here and actively engaged in the development of this community, they're going to tell others as well. And we can get those folks to move here as well. So it's a key piece of what we're doing.
And you were saying, you know, we have the college here and stuff, so keeping them here whenever they graduate, correct?
Exactly. That's another big thing, and the university has talked a little bit about that. The better a community we are for young professionals, the easier it is for MSU to recruit students here in the first place.
Sure.
And then absolutely tapping into those folks while they're here, get them off campus, get them engaged in the community. Then when they graduate, they'll already have contacts here that can help them find a job, and they're much more likely to stay. And when they do that, our population goes up.
I know another big focus seems to be, you know, on downtown, where there's a lot of revitalization going on down there. There's going to be the new transit system down there, the new bus system down there. So can you talk about the focus that you're seeing and why that area is so important?
Right. No matter where you go, downtown is the heart of a community. And if your downtown is dead, if it's just boarded up, and people see that, they say, that's not a community that's very proud of itself. It's not taking pride in itself as a community. Because if you think about it like this, if you didn't have downtown, where would you take somebody and say, this is the heart of Wichita Falls? There's no other place. And that goes for every city across the country. And now there are plenty of communities, plenty of them here in Texas, that have a thriving retail area, mall. Look at our mall and all the new Lawrence Road construction and all that stuff, that have that and a good downtown. What I hear in my job a lot is people saying, well, we need to do this instead of this. And I say, that's bull. I say we need to do this and this, and there's no reason why you can't do it. And so that's the mindset we need to think of. What are all the pieces that we need? Not choosing one over the other, because you can support both. Our retail trade and our new restaurants and all that, they're going fine, and there's more of that coming. So let's put some focus on downtown. Let's support the downtown development crew. You know, they're not just putting on events now. They're helping people find office space down there. They're redeveloping. They bought the old Zales building, and they're going to redevelop it. So they're putting their money where their mouth is. There's all kind of museums down there, and the farmers market, a bunch of residential developments down there too. There are people living downtown that not a lot of people know about. And so all those pieces are important if we're going to become a world-class community. And we can do it, but we've got to keep thinking about those things. We
just really appreciate your time, and it's exciting. It's exciting to hear all the new things, the outlook that you have on 2014 and this community, so
appreciate
thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Well, we want to say thank you to Texoma for joining us this morning. We hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, we'll see you back here next Sunday morning for another look inside Texoma.